You know the exact physical sensation. You walk into a crowded room, you speak up in a meeting, or you post a picture of your life online, and then you wait. You hold your breath. You check your phone, put it down, and pick it up again seconds later. You are desperately waiting for the nod of approval, the validation, the external signal that tells you that you matter. Your chest tightens, your heart rate elevates slightly, and in that precise, agonizing moment, if the validation does not come, you feel an invisible, crushing weight. You feel entirely worthless. You feel invisible. And in that moment, you realize the brutal, undeniable truth about your existence. Your entire peace of mind, your biological baseline, and your identity are completely outsourced. You are a psychological hostage. You are a slave to the unpredictable, chaotic opinions of people who do not even care about you. The more you need people to validate your existence, the faster they lose respect for you. The harder you try to fit in, to be liked, to be needed, the more you suffocate your own potential. You are exhausted. You are burning out. Not because you are working too hard, but because you are functioning as a desperate beggar in a world that only respects kings. What if the ultimate display of absolute power in any relationship, negotiation, or social dynamic is not being the most popular person in the room? What if true psychological superiority is the brutal, clinical, and permanent execution of absolute self-sufficiency? We are not talking about being antisocial. We are not talking about the trauma response of hiding in your room because you are afraid of rejection. We are talking about the highly advanced biological firewall of simply not needing anyone. Society conditioned you to be a dependent sheep. It is time to become the wolf. You have been thoroughly and systematically brainwashed by modern culture. You are constantly told that humans are tribal creatures. You are told that you need a massive social circle, that you need to constantly network, that you must find your tribe to be happy. You are told that hyper-independence is a trauma response and that you must constantly communicate your feelings and rely on others to heal. This is a catastrophic, dangerous lie designed to keep you weak. While it is true that primitive humans needed the tribe to survive saber-toothed tigers, you are no longer living in a cave. In the modern world, the tribe is no longer a mechanism for physical survival. It is a mechanism for social control. When you operate from a place of intense social scarcity, when you obsess over whether people like you, your nervous system enters a state of chronic threat. You literally leak anxiety into the room. You broadcast weakness through your micro-expressions, your posture, and the subtle, desperate pitch of your voice. And whether it is a potential partner, a high-level business client, or a toxic friend, the human brain is evolutionarily wired to detect and exploit needy energy. It is a survival mechanism. When you need people, you look exactly like a predator starving for a meal, and everything you want instinctively runs away to protect itself. You are actively repelling respect because your body language screams that you are fundamentally incomplete on your own. You signal to the world that you have no internal value, so you must extract it from them. People feel this. They smell the blood in the water. In the next few minutes, we are going to tear down the clinical psychology of validation seeking and the ancient Stoic frameworks of internal sovereignty. You will learn why relying on external approval is actively destroying your cognitive potential. You will discover how to shift your baseline identity from chronic dependence to absolute, terrifying self-sufficiency. And you will understand exactly why silence, isolation, and brutal self-focus make you magnetically powerful. While 95% of the population is out there exhausting their nervous systems, begging for cheap attention, you are going to learn how to build the kind of inner stability that forces the world to come to you on your exact terms. You must choose right now. Are you going to keep begging for applause, or are you going to build an empire in silence? Let us start with the grand biological illusion of needing approval. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus laid down a cognitive framework thousands of years ago that modern behavioral psychology is just now catching up to. It is called the dichotomy of control. You suffer, you feel anxious, and you feel entirely stuck in life because you are investing massive amounts of cognitive bandwidth into variables you cannot manipulate. You cannot control if someone finds you attractive. You cannot control if your boss recognizes your genius. You cannot control if your friends invite you to their gathering. You cannot control the thoughts, actions, or loyalties of anyone else on this planet. Yet, you foolishly tie your emotional baseline to these external, chaotic events. Every single time you seek validation, you are willingly handing the remote control of your nervous system over to an unpredictable, highly manipulative world. You are actively choosing to be a victim of circumstance. When you obsess over what people think of you, your amygdala, the fear and survival center of your brain, stays hyperactive. You are constantly scanning the environment for social threats. Did they look at me right? Why did they use that tone of voice? Why did they leave me on read intentionally? This constant obsessive hypervigilance drains your mental energy. It burns through your dopamine. It fries your parasympathetic nervous system. You become erratic. You become a people pleaser. You compromise your own boundaries and make poor, impulsive decisions because you are acting out of a deep, primal fear of social rejection rather than operating from a place of cold, clinical clarity. To stop needing people, you must brutally sever your emotional attachment to their opinions. You must physically disconnect the cable from your chest. You focus exclusively on the input. You focus on your actions, your mindset, your discipline, your physical health, and your daily habits. You build a massive, impenetrable firewall around your attention. If an opinion is outside of your control, it simply does not exist to you. It is dead data. It is irrelevant noise. While others react wildly to the rejection of the world, you respond with cold, calculated indifference. This brings us to the neurobiology of the covert manipulator. The root reason you are chasing people is because, subconsciously, you believe you are lacking. You believe you are fundamentally broken or empty. You believe that attaining the relationship, getting the high-status title, or being included in the group will finally patch the hole inside of you and make you whole. You are operating from a massive psychological deficit. You feel empty, and you are trying to use other people as bandages to fill the void. But psychology shows us a painful truth that most people absolutely refuse to accept. Manipulators, covert narcissists, and emotional vampires specifically hunt for people who need validation. They do not target strong, self-sufficient individuals. They target the person who constantly nods in agreement, the person who apologizes when they did nothing wrong, the person who desperately tries to keep the peace. They look for your neediness, and they weaponize it against you. They use a psychological tactic called intermittent reinforcement. They give you intense validation, warmth, and attention on Monday. On Tuesday, they withdraw completely, become cold, and subtly disrespect you. Because you need them, you do not walk away. Instead, you panic. Your brain goes into chemical withdrawal. You wonder what you did wrong. When they finally throw you a crumb of basic human decency on Thursday, your brain releases a massive, unnatural spike of dopamine. You become physically addicted to the relief of the pain that they caused you in the first place. This is a trauma bond. Your nervous system becomes completely confused. You stay in toxic friendships, abusive relationships, and dead-end jobs because your primal brain mistakenly believes that losing this external validation is equivalent to biological death. You are funding their ego trip with your own mental exhaustion. You are handing your vital life energy to a parasite. Cut the cord immediately. You must act as if you already embody your ideal sovereign self. This is not some cheap New Age manifestation trick. This is clinical, neurological rewiring. It is neuroplasticity in action. When you adopt the posture, the calmness, the vocal cadence, and the boundary setting of someone who does not need absolutely anyone to survive, your brain undergoes a profound chemical shift. Your brain stops producing toxic levels of cortisol. Your stress levels drop. Your breathing deepens. Your prefrontal cortex, the logical, strategic, executive center of your brain, comes fully online. This allows you to see macro-level manipulation that you were previously too anxious to notice. You stop forcing unnatural conversations. You stop over-explaining yourself to people who deliberately misunderstand you. You stop saying yes to social events you hate just to keep toxic people from leaving your life. Confidence is the floor of everything you build. And let us be brutally clear about what confidence actually is. True confidence is not walking into a room believing everyone will love you. True confidence is walking into a room and realizing you will be completely, entirely fine, even if every single person in there hates you. You are sovereign. You belong to yourself. Your validation comes from your own discipline, not their applause. Join the elite minority who build from within while the masses hunt for cheap dopamine. We must closely examine the devastating power of emotional isolation. Marcus Aurelius did not write his meditations to feel good. He did not write them to be published or validated by the masses. He wrote them as a psychological firewall against the absolute chaos, betrayal, and violence of ruling the Roman Empire. He understood a fundamental law of human dynamics. True power is never loud, and it is never, ever dependent on the crowd. Power is silent. Power is still. Power is self-contained. When you finally stop seeking, something fascinating and highly predictable happens to your social dynamics. People in modern society are entirely used to being needed. Everyone is competing for attention on social media, in the workplace, and in dating. People are highly accustomed to others needing their approval, laughing too hard at their unfunny jokes, and bending over backwards to accommodate their schedules. They feed on this validation like emotional vampires. It inflates their fragile egos. When you suddenly and ruthlessly withdraw that energy, the dynamic flips entirely. When you stop needing their validation, stop texting first, stop overinvesting, and focus entirely on your own mission, it creates a massive psychological vacuum in their lives. Nature absolutely abhors a vacuum. When you stop pushing your energy outward toward them, people are instinctively drawn inward toward you. They wonder why you are no longer playing the game. They wonder why their usual manipulation tactics do not work on you. Why are you not chasing them? Why are you not reacting to their drama? Your absolute absence of neediness becomes profoundly attractive. It creates an aura of intense mystery and superiority. They begin to desperately seek your approval because you are no longer seeking theirs. This is the ultimate power of Stoic self-sufficiency. You are not isolating yourself as a toxic, manipulative game to get them to chase you. That is weak. You are isolating your emotional baseline because you genuinely, clinically realize that their validation adds absolutely zero tangible value to your inner peace. Their opinions do not pay your bills. Their approval does not regulate your nervous system. Their presence does not cure your internal wounds. When you shift your focus from external acquisition to internal self-sufficiency, you stop being a hunter running wildly through the forest begging for food. You become the environment itself. You become the mountain, and people naturally gravitate toward the mountain. Let us be brutally clinical about your daily habits for a moment. Examine your actual behavior. Every single time you compromise your boundaries to please someone else, you are telling your own brain that you are worthless on your own. Every time you abandon your personal goals to chase a momentary distraction, a cheap thrill, or a toxic relationship that you know is bad for you, you are actively degrading your self-trust. Self-trust is the ultimate currency of the Stoic mind. It is the only currency that actually matters in this life. If you do not trust yourself to handle rejection, to handle failure, to handle betrayal, or to handle intense loneliness, you will always be a slave. You will be a slave to the people who can offer you a temporary, cheap escape from those negative feelings. You will always be a pawn in someone else's game because you are too terrified to play your own. You are funding their ego trip with your own mental exhaustion. Starve them. To truly stop needing anyone, you must learn to sit in the absolute, crushing discomfort of your own company. You must build a mind that is so sharp, so disciplined, and so fiercely focused on its own evolution that the manufactured drama of the outside world feels incredibly boring to you. You must view your attention as a finite, highly valuable biological resource. It is your most precious asset, more valuable than time or money, because where your attention goes, your life follows. Every single minute you spend stalking someone's social media to see if they noticed you, every hour you spend stressing over a delayed email, every sleepless night you spend worrying about an outcome you cannot control, is cognitive bandwidth stolen directly from your own growth. You are literally funding your own misery. You are handing your vital life energy to the void. You are paying the price of their real estate in your mind. When you finally realize this, and you aggressively redirect that massive amount of energy back into yourself, into your physical health, your intellect, your emotional regulation, your business, and your singular purpose, the results are exponential. The math of your life changes completely. You stop trying to force locked doors open. You stop begging people to see your worth. Instead, you start building a house where you hold all the master keys. You realize that the people you were desperately trying to impress were actually far too small for you. They were cheap prizes that required too much of your dignity. The desperation fades. The chronic anxiety dissolves. The physical tightness in your chest disappears. Your nervous system finally regulates. You begin to look at the chaotic, frantic, desperate world around you with a clinical, unbothered stillness. You observe the manipulation, the ego games, and the status chasing, but you do not absorb it. You become a mirror, not a sponge. You realize that solitude is not a punishment. Solitude is the ultimate filter. It strips away the parasites, the energy vampires, and the fake friends. It leaves you only with the absolute truth of who you are. And when you are completely comfortable with who you are in an empty room, no one can ever use your fear of abandonment against you again. You become psychologically untouchable. While others pursue external validation to patch their deep internal wounds, you are constructing an unbreakable sovereignty. While others react to every minor inconvenience with panic, anxiety, and emotional outbursts, you respond with absolute silence. You let them exhaust themselves. You let them burn their own energy while you conserve yours. This is not just a philosophical concept. This is not just theory. This is human evolution. And evolution is the silent, lethal superpower that separates the weak who beg for reality to change from the elite who simply adapt, detach, and conquer. The weak complain about being lonely. The sovereign weaponize their solitude to build their own arena. If you chose to watch this video until the very end, you are already part of the minority that prioritizes deep character over rapid, cheap validation. You are no longer a victim of your own chaotic attachments. You are no longer a hostage to the people who do not value you. You are waking up to the reality of your absolute power. Subscribe to Stoic Fortitude. Stop needing the world to tell you who you are. Stop begging for a seat at their table. Start building the mind that the world simply cannot ignore.